Take off your shoes, lay down your hair, turn on the music and we'll get somewhere. Stand, stand, stand still, your nose gets tanned. We're gonna have us some fun on the beach, slicing sand. I had to get some Elvis song in this review, some way, shape, or form. Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM is a men's clothing label with a huge variety of eccentric designs and products such as graphic tees, basic tees, jackets, hoodies, underwear, lounge shorts, and much more. I even have a couple items myself. They are shrink resistant, which is a breath of fresh air for someone as tall as I am, and they are extremely soft and cozy, another must for me because, you know, I like wearing clothes that actually feel good. And you can get 10% off if you use my discount code in the description box below. Be sure to check out my partners at Movie Scene Canada, and if you want to support the channel, please be sure to check out my Patreon page to take part in monthly hangout watch-alongs, watch content early, and be entered to win copies of movies every single month. Now, onto the video. Hey guys, my name is Brandon, aka the BrandoCritic, and I just saw the new Elvis movie, and I'm here to give you my honest, no BS, non-spoiler movie review and tell you if this movie is worth a watch. And make sure you hit that subscribe button as well because I feel so lonely, I could die. Alright, no more Elvis singing. Into the review. A little less conversation, a little more movie reviewing. Cringe. Okay, we have Elvis from Baz Luhrmann, and you know him from such films as Romeo and Juliet, Australia, Moulin Rouge, and The Great Gatsby. And it stars Austin Butler as Elvis and Tom Hanks as the Colonel. And of course, this is a musical biopic, so this is the rise and fall of Elvis Aaron Presley and his relationship with his manager. And the story is basically centered around his point of view, sort of, but we'll get into that. But is this movie worth a watch? Yes, absolutely. I think that this movie is definitely worth a watch, but it is a bit of a messy ride. Now, this is a musical biopic, and once you've seen one, even though there are a lot of great ones, you've kind of seen them all. You just want to see a certain actor play a certain character or a certain musician in a different movie, right? We've seen Walk the Line, we've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, we've seen Rocketman, we've seen Ray, the Ray Charles movie, we've even seen Straight Outta Compton. These are all more recent ones, but again, they're pretty much the same. Start off from a small town, small beginnings, rise to fame, fall from grace. Sometimes there's a redemption at the end, sometimes not, but once you've seen one music biopic, you kind of know the structure for all of them. But having said that, Elvis was a very enjoyable time, and I do think you guys should watch it because Baz Luhrmann brings a lot of energy and a lot of style to this movie, and Elvis, you see everything in his life. You see from the beginning all the way to the end. You see his Hollywood career, you see his time in the army, you see his rise to fame on the radio with all of his songs, you see his first performances, you see his Las Vegas shows, you see everything in this movie. It is a very loaded movie. And with that being said, this movie is very, very long, and sometimes you do feel its length, but I'm thinking to myself, what do you cut out? But what's even weirder is that I think there are some certain scenes missing from this movie. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, and there is a lot in this movie. Now let's get into it. Let's talk about Austin Butler as Elvis. He is very fantastic in this movie. He has the look down. He has the movements down. He has the voice down. He has all of his sounds down. He is Elvis Presley. Now, I've been in this argument before about Freddie Mercury with Rami Malek's performance, and people were telling me, oh, I didn't see Freddie Mercury on screen, I saw Rami Malek doing a Freddie Mercury impression. And I'm thinking, well, you are playing a real character, someone with a very distinct voice, with a very distinct look and style, so of course you really have to get that down, and he does a very good job with this. And I don't really know where that line is, where they're just being an impersonation of that celebrity or musician or giant popular figure, or they're really turning into that role. And I'll be honest, I didn't see Austin Butler doing an Elvis impression. I saw Elvis Presley. But of course, at the end, when you see the real Elvis footage, I'm like, oh my god, Elvis is so much better looking. So for the entire movie, I thought Austin Butler did a very good job. It was at the end of the movie when you saw the Elvis footage where you see the actual person where you're like, yeah, there is a bit of a difference there. But I mean, you're not gonna get anybody 100%, especially in a world where there's an Elvis impersonator on every street corner. So Austin Butler, I think, did a fantastic job in this movie. Now, Tom Hanks, and if you guys know me at all, I say that the two Toms are my favorite actors. Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise. Sure, there's some actors with more range than them, but in terms of just the movies that I like, it's the two Toms. However, this is the first Tom Hanks role that I've actually seen him in where he is technically, I guess, the villain or the antagonist of the story, even though he is basically the one telling us the story, which is a bit wonky, and I'll get into that. But this is the first performance of his where I'm like, I just see Tom Hanks in a fat suit. And he's supposed to be playing this type of scumbag, manipulative type of person, but Tom Hanks is just so lovable. He's America's dad. He plays Woody. He's Forrest Gump. It's like, how can you not like Tom Hanks? So when he's trying to play a role where he's supposed to be unlikable, I feel like there's a big disconnect there. And especially because we don't really know anything about him. He does these scumbag type things, but we don't really know why he does these things. We know he works in the carnivals and he knows a lot about show business, or at least what people like to see on stage, but we don't really know much about his backstory. We don't know about his motivations, his wants, his needs. I know he wants to make money and he's always putting himself first, but for the person telling us this story, I feel like it's a bit narratively lost, which is a shame for this type of movie. So I think that's the main reason why I couldn't really love this movie, but I do recommend seeing it because this is the Elvis experience. The look, the tone, the feel, the energy that this movie provides, it's just fantastic. And I can only imagine if you're an Elvis fan, you're gonna get everything you want in this movie because, like I said earlier, you see his Hollywood career, you see his Vegas performances, you see him on stage in a lot of different places, you see his various controversies, you see his upbringing, you see it all. This is the ultimate Elvis experience. And I hope that this movie brings the Elvis music to a new generation because this is a crazy story. My mother is an English teacher, teaching about grade 10 to grade 12 English. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in her class knows who Elvis Presley is. I think that's just insane. It's really that TikTok generation, right? Now, I don't want to shit on Gen Z too much. He is an older singer, right? But I hope that his music now reaches a new generation with this movie. And what's funny is that even after the movie, I was talking to a waiter and they're like, oh, I love Doja Cat so much. I want to see this new Elvis movie. So I'm thinking that that tie-in really helps the younger generation get into this movie. And you know what? The Doja Cat song actually worked in this movie. I'm thinking, oh, you know what? You got this new hip hop type of style in this Elvis movie. It's Baz Luhrmann. He knows how to make this energetic, fun ride with all these different types of music. I think he incorporated it very, very well because the music was not part of the story. It was basically part of the emotions of the characters and really capturing the feeling of what's happening in the story. So good job there. But I do want to talk about the messages of this movie. There are a lot of them. And I feel like because of this movie is so crammed, it does get narratively lost in terms of the structure, but also in terms of the message, because there's not one singular message to really take away from this movie. There's a bunch of them. I wrote down a couple of them that really stand out, but there's a lot to choose from. I do love how the Colonel was explaining how he saw the look on the women's faces when Elvis first sang and he got really, really famous. He's like, I saw in that woman's eyes that Elvis was like the forbidden fruit. You know that you really want it, but you feel kind of bad about liking it, right? Where you have girls going, woo! Oh my God, like just seeing something so amazing on stage, but knowing that with the status quo at the time, that they felt kind of guilty about liking that, about how she was feeling risque about liking that stuff. He was like shaking his hips and then she's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And you see all the girls go crazy. But of course you have the conservatives and the segregationists of the South. Get Elvis off TV. And that brings me into my next point. There is cancel culture in this movie, talking about how basically every single generation, every single part of the political spectrum, as soon as they see something that they don't like, they want to take it off. They want to take it off TV, make sure that their kids are not listening to it anymore. I feel like every major singer had to break the status quo, if you will, and Elvis definitely did that. I also love how they talk about hate in this movie. The Colonel, when selling all this merchandise about Elvis, he's also selling these I Hate Elvis pins, and he goes, what's hate worth if it's free? Very, very smart. And they talk about how Elvis was addicted to the love that he felt from the fans, that basically ordinary love just didn't cut it for him anymore, and that's where they got into the whole drugs and the booze and everything. And I like all of these messages and I like all of these themes that it tries to tackle, but it does try to tackle a lot of them. So this is just one really big, bloated movie, but it is a fun movie to see. It's definitely the Elvis experience. So for an overall rating, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, and people might be freaking out about that. It is a positive review. I like this movie. I just can't say that I'm overly ecstatic about it or that I love it. You know, would I watch it again? Probably. It definitely is more, I think, style over substance, and people get so mad when I talk about that, which I think is just bizarre, but the style of this movie definitely trumps the substance. Doesn't mean that there's not substance in it. This is a good movie, and if you like Elvis, I think you should give it a watch. So those are my thoughts on Elvis. What are yours? Leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you're new here, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, honey.